Okay, so about Matt versus Japan. Okay, so I know what this looks like. I'm once again complaining about Matt versus Japan and jumping into Matt versus Japan drama. Now, I will be completely transparent. I have actually been planning two more videos about Matt versus Japan before this whole video came out. And yes, seeing this new video did take the wind out of my sails slightly, but I do still plan on doing those at some point. But I also acknowledge the fact that I can't just keep uploading videos about Matt versus Japan over and over and over again. As fun as it is for me, I don't want this to turn into a Matt versus Japan hate channel. Until it needs to be, if you know what I mean there. I am serious about making this just a teaching channel, but I also acknowledge that the channel needs to grow, and what better way to grow the channel than to react to the hottest goss. So after this, yes, you're gonna see probably two more Matt videos, and then I'm gonna jump off the Matt train slightly. I just don't want anybody to get the impression that this channel is just here to bully Matt versus Japan, because I do genuinely just want to be a teacher. As another small disclaimer before we get into the video proper here, this is coming from the perspective of somebody who really doesn't like Matt vs. Japan. I think it would be fair to say that I hate Matt vs. Japan. If you're looking for even-handed criticisms of this video, people like EvilDia and Metatron, both of which I watch on the regular, and I have seen their videos on this video here, they gave fairly decent critiques of this video, and I do applaud them for that. They could have been a lot more soft, and they decided to go the less lenient route and actually go to task on Matt for a couple of things that he said. So if you're looking for like fair criticism from an unbiased source, those are definitely the two people that I would check out here. This is not somebody who is an unbiased source. I am extremely close to the Matt versus Japan controversies. I have been at basically the outer edge of all of them ever since Matt first started on his YouTube channel. This video is going to be much more critical of Matt than other videos out there, but that comes with a caveat that I'm also probably the person who's the closest to the Matt versus Japan and the Japanese learning community drama in this entire little sphere of people reacting to this video. I mean, I'll be real with you. When I saw the thumbnail and I saw the title of the video, it seems like, you know, I was actually fairly impressed with Matt for this. I thought this was going to be a fairly decent video of him taking ownership, but I have a few problems with this video, and I need to get them out of the way right up front. My first problem is, if you listen closely to what he's actually saying, he never at any point actually admits to the things that he's being accused of. He very loosely admits to some of the more outlandish things that he just can't possibly justify under any circumstances, but he's very deceptive about the way he goes about apologizing for some of the things that he's done. Second problem is, I do not like the tone of his voice when he's speaking. Jobs that I've worked the longest is as a paraprofessional, which basically means that I've worked with school kids. I've basically helped kids who are struggling get their homework done. I've helped kids with special needs. I've helped kids with behavioral issues. In my personal opinion, Matt vs. Japan is fairly immature. So a lot of the things he does that come off as manipulative, he probably isn't even actively doing. He's probably just really bad at controlling his emotions. So he says a lot of things and does a lot of things that sort of belie what it is he's trying to get across, and he probably doesn't even realize he's doing it, but nevertheless he is doing it. Anything, I think if Matt vs. Japan knew how to control how manipulative he is, he would be a very dangerous person. The only reason he can even be reined in at all is the fact that he doesn't realize how bad it is. And of course, this all just so happens to be leading straight into his new business venture. Oh, good. So I've tried to set up this video as much as I possibly could. If you're somebody who's going to defend Matt, then there's nothing I can say to change your minds. But if you're somebody who's willing to hear me out, that's all the stuff that I can give you. Let's go ahead and get into the video.
Am I, Matt vs. Japan, a scammer? Well, you know what? Maybe I am. In these past couple years, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding me. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things. And you know what? A lot of it is actually true. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I guess I thought that if I just laid low long enough, eventually the mistakes would blow over. But I finally realized that some of these mistakes are so indefensible that they're never going to blow over, and I need to own up to them. So in this video, I'm going to lay out everything that's happened to me in the last couple years surrounding all these controversies, and I'm going to let you decide whether you think I'm a scammer or not.
Here's my problem with this entire thing with Matt versus Japan owning up to his mistakes. He never wraps back around and actually admits to the fact that he was part of a scam or scamming people. He does this extremely slimy thing where he says, well, was I a scammer? I don't know. It's possible. I have made some mistakes. And it's like, he'll never... Yes, the answer to that question is yes, by the way. I would have respected Matt so much more if he had just come out and said, you know what? I was involved with some scams. I'm looking at changing the direction that I go in teaching Japanese. I recognize that the stuff I was doing before was really scummy and very scammy, and I plan to not be that way anymore. That's how you actually apologize for the things that you're doing. But he does this thing where he's like, I don't know, it's possible. I could have been, I could not have been. I'm going to let you make that decision for yourself. So he's not actually acknowledging that he was in fact as bad as people are saying he was. He is letting you come to your own conclusion so that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance you'll see everything that he's done and just forgive him for it anyways, which sadly is in fact the direction some people have gone.
So the first thing I should probably talk about is my partnership that I had with Yoga, also known as Lucas. So Yoga and I started working together in 2017, 2018, worked together for a couple years. It was going pretty well, but ultimately we had some disagreements we couldn't work out, and we decided to go our separate ways. But when we were deciding how to split up the assets that we had built up, we couldn't come to an agreement, and it ultimately led to a very nasty public split up. Now, I should have handled that situation a lot better, and a lot of what happened was directly my fault. But luckily, Lucas and I have since then actually made up and buried the hatchet, and we're now on very good terms, and I'm very happy to be able to call him my friend.
I will give Matt a little bit of credit here. I do like the fact that he now acknowledges that the entire Lucas fiasco was mainly his fault. He is mainly the one to blame for everything that happened during the entire Lucas controversy. However, one thing that I do want to point out here is Lucas is a very big person for forgiving Matt here. It does not necessarily mean that Matt gets any of the credit for that. I am super proud of Lucas for being willing to forgive Matt and just publicly be friends with him, although I'm a little shaky on whether or not that's actually what's happening, but I digress. I'll just take Matt's word for it right now that they are just good friends and they have actually just buried the hatchet for real. But that's Lucas's W. That is not Matt's W, okay? If somebody comes out and they are super awful to you, and then that person is forgiven, they don't get points for that. That's just dumb. And I've seen people, I remember during Metatron's reaction to this, he was saying, oh, if they've buried the hatchet, then I don't see how it's anybody else's real business. I think Matt should just be forgiven then for everything. No, that's not how that works. If somebody is super shitty as a person, and the person that they're shitty to decides to forgive them, then that person is a huge person for being willing to forgive them. But the person who was shitty in the first place doesn't just get a pass for that. That's not how any of this should work. Matt, I still do not like for the things that he did during the Yoga fiasco, but I will give to Yoga for being the bigger man in this situation. That's all there is to it.
But anyway, in the wake of Lucas and I splitting up in late 2020, a couple things happened. First of all, I met someone named Ethan, and we started Refold together. And also, just a little bit after that, I met someone named Ken Cannon. Now, Ken is someone who was like me in a lot of ways. He's an American who learned Japanese to an extremely high level while living in America, but was a little different than me was he had a background in online marketing and online business, and he had a business online where he helped people learn Japanese, and he made a lot of money. So when I started to become friends with Ken Cannon, he taught me a lot about this kind of business and online marketing, And I allowed myself to be very influenced by this. And it actually led me to decide that I wanted to stop doing Refold and instead work with Ken Cannon. So I actually talked to Ethan very early on in the creation of Refold, and we had decided that I was going to leave Refold, and we together created a plan, a kind of long-term exit plan that would allow me to leave Refold in such a way that Ethan would be able to continue Refold without me. And this actually went really well. I ended up sticking around with Refold for about 2 years total. And in the middle of 2022, I officially left Refold. And to this day, 3 years later, Ethan and the Refold team run Refold, and it seems like it's going really successfully. So luckily, that went well.
Okay, so let's recap here. You leave yoga, and yoga goes on to make what is, in my opinion, one of the best tools for learning Japanese. You leave Refold, and Refold is extremely successful. I'm starting to see a bit of a pattern here, Matt.
But anyway, around this time when I had just started to meet Ken, started to talk to Ken, I was still in Refold, an incident that happened that I have to mention is that at one point I was having what I thought was a private conversation with another member of the Japanese learning community, and it turned out that this entire conversation was actually getting recorded. So this was a 2-hour conversation that we had where I was speaking very candidly about my perspective being a creator in this Japanese learning space. And this conversation, was recorded without me knowing, and was passed around, and it got into the hands of someone who really hates me.
If you're going to talk about this, at least talk about it properly. The person he's talking about here is Anacreon. All Anacreon did was take the exact things that you said and compile them into a video. Believe it or not, Matt, not everybody has 2 hours of their life to listen to you. So he took the worst parts of what you said and put them into a 12-minute video to make it a little bit easier to digest. You were in the wrong for saying the things that you said. He didn't edit anything out of context. He did include some images to show just how bad the things you were saying were actually, were. But, if you want to hold him to that, I guess you can. But it's not like you didn't say these things. You said some awful things during that interview. The fact that you're now trying to play it off like, oh, well, it wasn't fair that he recorded me. So, sometimes you just have to record bad people in private. Sometimes you have to know how people act in private to really know who they are. I would never, even in private, say the things that you said during your video. And the fact that you're not even willing to say Anacreon's name after this happened and you got his channel taken down off of YouTube, he leaves that little part out, by the way. After Anacreon calls him out, rightfully so, for the awful things that he was saying during that interview, Matt vs. Japan got Anacreon's channel taken down. Matt vs. Japan probably won't even admit that he was the one that did it. But you know what? I've seen all the evidence. I know for a fact it was you, Matt. I think it's really awful of you to not only abuse the copyright system to get one of your credits taken down off of YouTube, but to now in your apology video not even admit to the fact that you were doing it, or not even explain the situation properly for people who don't know that that happens. This is my main problem with this entire Matt vs. Japan apology tour. He's banking on the fact that most of the people in his audience don't know the extent of the awful things that he's done. Because you are in the dark about this, he can be a little bit vague and he can be a little bit shady about the way he owns up to what he's done. And a lot of the people in his audience just aren't going to know the full extent of it. So they're just going to assume that it wasn't a very big deal, or that Matt was the poor victim the entire time, so he deserves a pass. And that's just not the case. A lot of these circumstances, that's just not the case.
And this person took clips from this 2-hour-long conversation and edited it into a video that made it sound like I was saying really terrible things, like I thought my whole audience was a bunch of whales that I could just milk for money by selling like crap products, and that, I thought I was some kind of Japanese god, and I purposely try to lead my audience into thinking that I'm a Japanese god or something like that. Now, if you actually listen to the whole conversation in context, what I said was actually pretty mild.
What I said, it wasn't even that bad, guys. I'm sorry, but also, if you really think about it, what I said wasn't actually that bad. I mean, come on, come on. What's a few scams between friends, eh?
And so I've uploaded an entire 2-hour uncut recording of this conversation, the exact recording that went around. I have uploaded that on my second channel so that you can go and watch it and decide for yourself what you think. I put timestamps to the sections that people usually like to quote as, when I'm talking about whales or things like that.
On paper, that Matt doing that sounds like a really good thing. And if you're an onlooker, that seems like Matt is just being a real cool guy. But I have a couple of problems with this. We're going to definitely go into his re-upload once this video is finished. But here's my number one problem with Matt re-uploading the conversation. He now basically owns that footage. And if anybody does a reaction to it, this just makes it a lot easier for him to copyright strike it now that it's on a YouTube channel that he owns. So, I mean, I'm really hoping this isn't the case, but I am just pointing out there that this is another form of control that Matt versus Japan has. Now, if anybody goes and actually does a reaction to that interview, which is something that I would have liked to have done at some point, they now risk being taken down by Matt versus Japan and having copyright strikes on their channel, which I don't know. It's just one of those things where we have to trust Matt versus Japan to be responsible, and I just don't. There are some other little slimy things about what he's done to the interview. He hasn't just put the interview up for people to listen to it. There are definitely some things that I want to talk about with that, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
But anyway, going back to kind of the Ken Cannon thing, what I just said will come in a little bit. But yeah, Ken and I got talking, and we decided we were going to make a pitch accent course together. Making a pitch accent course was something that I had been wanting to do for many years because pitch accent's probably one of the topics that I'm most passionate about when it comes to how to learn Japanese, because it's something that I found out really late in the game, and I feel like if I would have learned about it sooner, it would have saved me a lot of time and effort. And also, when I went to go and learn pitch accent, I had a really hard time doing so. There were not a lot of resources out there, and there were a lot of things I had to go and find out on my own through a lot of hard work, and I felt like I had kind of come up with my own unique framework for teaching pitch accent, and I could do it in a unique way that would provide a lot of value to people. Now, I want to say up front that, of course, there's also Dogen's pitch accent course. Dogen's pitch accent course is really good. I would recommend anyone interested in pitch accent to go and check it out. But the course that I had in mind was a little bit more comprehensive, where it doesn't just give you the knowledge, but also helps you kind of train your ears and train your mouth and things like this, and also goes into even more nitty-gritty detail that Dogen doesn't go into yet.
Matt playing the game here and trying desperately to make sure Dogen likes him is just, it's so gross. It's so gross. Matt versus Japan is like the Sneeko of the Japanese learning community. He will say whatever he has to say to make sure he stays on the good side of powerful people in the Japanese language community.
So it wasn't meant to kind of replace Dogen's course. It was kind of just supposed to be fill a different kind of place in the market. But anyway, Ken and I went on to make this course. It was called Project Uproot, and it had a couple different components to it. One of the components was just video lessons where I'm sitting in front of a digital chalkboard and I'm teaching the concept of pitch accent according to the framework that I came up with. All in all, there ended up being 48 of these video lessons that added all up to over 15 hours of content. There was also chorusing audios, where these were basically audios that used example sentences that we created based on the video lessons that were read by a native speaker, and they were edited in such a way that you could use them for chorusing very easily, and this was to train your mouth and train your ears. We also had Anki decks that we gave out to students that taught you the pitch of the most common words in Japanese, and then also we had live sessions where Ken and I would be joined by a native speaker, and we would have the students actually do exercises where they would test their pitch perception and actually speak Japanese, and then we would have the native speaker correct their Japanese. And so we designed this course called Project Uproot. We spent almost a year kind of planning it and things like that. And then in January 2022, we finally officially launched it. Now, the deal that Ken and I had was that I was going to mostly make the content of the course, and Ken was mostly going to be in charge of the marketing. And at this point in time, it was already set in stone that I was going to be leaving Refold in a couple months. And so this course basically had to be the one thing that was going to be financially supporting me for the next period of time. I was really putting all of my time and effort into this course, and I really wanted to make a lot of money off it. So I told Ken to design the marketing in such a way that we would make as much money as possible. And this really led to probably the biggest mistake that I've made in my life thus far, which was marketing this course in a very terrible, off-putting, obnoxious way.
I just don't know, Matt. Call me a skeptic. You know, I'm somebody who actively hates you, so maybe this is being a little bit unfair. But I genuinely just don't believe anything you say about your relationship with Ken Cannon. I think you liked Ken Cannon's grift, and I think you wanted a little piece of the action. One of the things that I don't like about Matt talking about his relationship with Ken Cannon is he pretends that he was completely innocent, just didn't do any of the cringe copy that Ken Cannon was doing before this. But I promise you, I am telling you, please look into my eyes as I say this. Matt vs. Japan has always been doing cringe copy. He just wasn't as good at it as Ken Cannon. That's the only difference here, is he was doing it too, he just sucked at it. That's why he wanted to team up with Ken Cannon. When he says that they were very similar, I believe him when he says that. But he was similar in more ways than he's admitting to here. That's the point I'm trying to make.
So basically, we designed this whole marketing strategy that was designed around building false scarcity, building fear in people, making it, going against all the principles that I've always had on my own YouTube channel, where we're making it sound like this one course that we're selling is the only way to get a perfect accent. We have some magic secret that other people don't have. You can get a perfect accent in only a couple months using this course. If you don't get it, then you're going to sound bad in Japanese, and Japanese people aren't going to like you. And you're only going to have one chance to buy this course. And basically, we tried to press all of people's fears buttons and FOMO buttons and basically just get people, as many people as possible, to want to buy this course.
Just, do you get what I was saying with this whole, tone of his voice thing? We were telling people that this was the only way that you could get good at Japanese. We were telling people that, Japanese people were gonna hate them if they didn't take this course. You're telling people an unrealistic thing about getting good at Japanese in a couple of months. He's like, I've worked with enough kids to know what this behavior is. He's not sorry for any of this. He's only as sorry as he needs to be forgiven. But he is just so slimy in the way that he admits any kind of fault here. Hey Matt, I have an idea. We're in our transparency age, right? We're getting the interview out there so that people can actually see the context of what's going on, so that they can make their own, form their own opinion based on what you actually said. Why don't you go ahead and release some of the marketing materials that you put out with Project Uproot? Huh? That'd be pretty good, right? Go ahead and put all of the emails that you sent out there and all the videos that you made out there, so that we can come to our own conclusion about what it is you were actually doing with Project Uproot. What's the harm in that? We're being transparent, right? Or are we only being transparent about the things that you think you can defend? It's almost like we're not actually sorry, now is it? The reason that he would never do something like that isn't because he disavows it. It's because it gives him this weird sense of power that now I have to argue like a crazy person against these things that he's downplaying to an extreme extent. He's not going to be fully honest about just how awful his marketing material was. He's going to basically give you the cliff notes of some of the things that he's willing to be forgiven for. But if he actually gave you those things, you would see the same things that I have seen him say, and it would make what I'm saying make a lot more sense. But he's not going to do that. So why even bother,
And this led to a huge backlash in the community, understandably so. First of all, just because inherently the marketing was very terrible and off-putting. But second of all, it was completely against my own personal brand. I was always about talking about how you don't need to spend a lot of money to learn a language. I actually had criticized Katsumoto for doing a very similar thing, so I basically was coming across as completely hypocritical. And also, that video that the hater made where they're taking clips of me out of context to make it sound like I want to just, rip off a bunch of whales, that video started to get a lot more attention once we released Project Uproot, and everyone started pointing to that video and going, oh, look, this is what Matt was talking about. This is the giant scam he's making to try to squeeze money out of the whales.
Yeah. And was it not? I don't know how many more ways I can say this. Matt is being so dishonest about the way he's presenting all of this. Here's the first thing that I want to talk about here. Matt pretending that the marketing was going against his own principles and what he actually believes is bullshit. When him and George got into their back and forth about how important pitch accent is, this would be George Trombley's Pitch Accent is Stupid, Changed My Mind, which is it's a beautiful video, by the way. And Matt made his response to that video. He basically parroted all of the opinions that he had during the Kincannon marketing stuff. Was Kincannon behind the camera pulling the strings in that one too, Matt? I don't think he was. During that video, Matt said that people in Japan were just being nice if you were talking to them with an incorrect pitch, and that behind the scenes, they actually didn't like talking to you that much. It's not like anything changed here. The only reason that he's going back and saying that it goes against his personal brand is because now he's in trouble for it. If he never got called out for it, he would never have changed this opinion. It is completely true that he held all those opinions before, and now he's changing it to make himself more palatable, to expand his reach slightly.
And so all these things combined to lead to this giant backlash where everyone basically started calling it a scam before they even really knew what it was. And this whole thing about me being a scammer, my understanding is that it stems from this right here. So what Ken and I thought at the time was, we're about to run this course. The course was planned to be a 2-month-long course. So rather than just coming out and trying to explain to everybody, hey, it's not a scam, when we didn't really even have anything to show for it yet, we'd actually run the whole course. It would be a success. The customers would like it. We'd get some testimonials, and then we'd come back to YouTube a couple months later, showing the testimonials, showing the course, showing the results, and then explain that it wasn't really a scam. Now I have to talk about, of course, the price of the course. The price of the course, Project Uproot, was $500 with an optional $250 upsell. So basically the base course was $500. You'd get all the components of the course I mentioned before. And if you paid an additional $250 for a total of $750, then you would get additional time with me, Ken, and the native speakers on live sessions where you'd get more attention. Now, as far as the price goes, if we had fully delivered on the course that we were promising to create, I think $500 actually would have been a pretty fair price. Because when you think about all the time that it took me to create these hours of video lessons, and all the time we spent creating other parts of the course, and just all the time I had to spend studying pitch myself to get to this point, I think that $500 to really learn all of pitch accent, not just the knowledge, but getting to practice it and really having all the tools you need to learn to speak Japanese with perfect pitch accent, if you put in the work, I think is actually pretty fair. And if when I first got interested in pitch accent, there was a course like this that taught all of this and had this all together in one easy to understand place, I would have paid $500 for it happily.
Interesting. So all of the things that you were going to deliver was definitely a steal at $500. You yourself would have paid that money to learn everything that you were about to put out. This course sounds pretty great. I'm actually going to keep a note of all of the things that you're promising with this course here to the side. I'm sure it's going to come into play later. So I just want to keep track of all of the great things that you have to say about your course here. And just give me a second to write this down.
I see a lot of people online kind of saying things like, with that same amount of money, you could hire like hours and hours of italki lessons, right? Well, the thing is, italki teachers don't know how to teach pitch accent. Right? They don't know the pitch accent rules. They've never had to learn pitch accent themselves because they just picked it up naturally as a child. And so they really aren't going to be able to help you if your true goal is to master pitch accent, but this course is. So it's not really a valid comparison.
And all of the money I could be putting into italki just isn't going to be as good because they don't know the rules of pitch accent. They can't teach it as well as I can. I'm going to go ahead and note that one down too, if you don't mind. Go and give me just a second to write this down. There's very, very good stuff here, Matt. Very good stuff.
So yeah, there's that. I think $500, honestly, of course it is pricey, but for what we were promising, I think it's kind of fair.
Okay, so let's put this into perspective. $500 per student. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and just completely ignore the $250 upsell for right now. Okay, let's only go based on the $500 per student thing. Now, I will admit I love Metatron for this because when I first watched this video, I came to the conclusion and was screaming at the screen, that's not how you have to look at this. And luckily, Metatron came in and completely validated my point. I want you to look at it like this. $500 per student. And if we were to take this number and actually apply it to the amount of students that he was planning on getting, let's go ahead and keep it low. Let's say 1,000, okay? 1,000 students, which is definitely reasonable for where he was. Okay, $500, 1,000 students. That's $500,000. $500,000 he was saying was a fair amount of money for him to make from this course. But let's take some stuff into consideration. All right, so you got to pay taxes. Let's go ahead and just take 30% off for paying your taxes. All right, fine, whatever. Okay, like $150,000 off for taxes. All right, $350,000 to make this course. But okay, of course, he's got to split the money with King Cannon too. Okay, half of that, $175,000 to make this course. Are you starting to see the problem here? He's like patting himself on the back for how reasonable this price is for all the work he's putting in. But he's also planning on making a lot of money off of it, and probably did if you take into consideration just how many people got into Project Uproot. Even if we take that number and we scale it way back, way down, if he sold this without even the $250 upsell to 100 people, which considering right now his current thing is at like 250 people, 100 people is definitely a reasonable number. That's $50,000 a year for this. The current teachers, like actual real teachers who spend 40 hours a week going to a school and teaching and then have to do even more work when they get home grading papers and exhausting themselves, those people are making less than $40,000 a year in some states. Matt, with the lowest possible number, the lowest amount he could possibly consider having been made, is like $50,000. He's making more money than those people. For what it was 2 months worth of work it was supposed to be. The only reason it wasn't 2 months of work is because he himself couldn't deliver in those 2 months. He was going to make over a year worth of an actual teacher's salary selling this course, probably way more for 2 months worth of work. And he's like upping himself for how great of a deal this was supposed to be. I just can't believe it sometimes,
The extra $250 upgrade, honestly, I don't think we had any way to justify that value. I think that was too much, and definitely that was an additional mistake. $750, I think, we didn't have enough value to justify that. But anyway, the way that the course played out was we had part of the course content done before we launched the course, but for the majority of the course content, we were planning on creating it in real time and having the students go through it in real time. And at the time, this seemed like a good idea because we could get feedback from the students in real time. They would watch, we'd make a video, they'd watch it, I could see what they thought was hard and not hard, and then I could kind of adjust what I was doing based on that. But in hindsight, this was a huge mistake because it took way longer than we initially predicted to actually make the course. Like I said, we thought that Project Uproot was going to be just a 2-month thing, a 60-day course, and it ended up taking over a year to make the basic content for Project Uproot. Part of this, like I said, was just that it took way longer than we predicted. If you've ever worked on a big project before, you'll probably be able to relate to an extent. But the other thing is that midway through teaching the course, I moved to Japan. I already knew I was going to move to Japan, but originally we thought we'd be done with the course by then. But right when we were still in the middle of the course, I moved to Japan in around the middle of 2023. And once I moved to Japan, I kind of got distracted. I went to school in Japan. I was studying abroad. It was super fun. I had finally been living in Japan for the first time in 10 years. And so I was still working on the course on the side, but the pace at which I made the course really slowed down. And this, again, was another huge mistake that I fully take responsibility for. We had customers paying a lot of money for this course, and I should have even if I moved to Japan, I should have buckled down and made that my number one priority. And that's not what I did. I let it fall to the back burner a little bit when I enjoyed myself a little bit too much in Japan, and that was a big mistake.
See, this is another thing that I want to give Matt a little bit of credit for. Yeah, you did kind of screw around in Japan a little bit too much. You were having a little bit too much fun. You did the classic Kickstarter scam thing of you made all the money up front, so why not just go and live it up? You're going to get the stuff done eventually, right? But the reason that I can't fully be with him on this and just say, okay, Matt, you owned up to it, let's, we can move on from that, I guess, is think about what he just said. He just got done talking up how good of an idea it was to put off making the actual course because it was for the benefit of the students. Oh, we'd be able to take the student feedback into consideration, and it's for you. It's for you. But now he's trying to make it sound like, it was a big mistake not to say that. Because do you see what I'm trying to get at here? He wants both the credit of it being a good idea because his entire thing was a noble goal, because we want to make the course alongside the students and make sure that they're getting the best course possible by taking all of their criticism into account when we make new materials. But also wants you to give him the slap on the wrist for not taking it seriously. It's like, which is it? Were you not making the course materials because you're an altruist who just wanted the best for your students? Or were you not making the materials because you were screwing around in Japan and having a little bit too much fun? Like, you can't have both of those things.
And so it ended up taking a whole year to make the basics of Project Uproot, and we didn't even get close to making all the different components that I wanted to make in mind. When I set out to make Project Uproot, I wanted it to be completely comprehensive. I wanted to teach every single nook and cranny of pitch accent, all the little rules, even the ones that aren't written in any other books or resources, and I had to figure out myself just through listening to lots of Japanese and deducing the rules. But we really only created the very base core content of Project Uproot. I always wanted to make more, but because we ended up only selling Project Uproot one time, and we didn't have that many students, and we had to split all the profits between me and Ken, after a whole year, the funds were starting to run low. And so we needed to do something else to make money. And so even though in my mind I wasn't totally satisfied with where Project Uproot was, we started selling a new product, which was Fluency Incubator. So before I move on to this, just to clarify, Project Uproot was a course that we sold one time. I think registrations were open for 1 week at the beginning of 2022. And after that, we have never sold the course again. So the total number of people that have ever taken Project Uproot is very small. And I'll talk about at the end about, what I think is going to happen to Project Uproot now.
Very small, but I'm also not going to tell you exactly how many. I'm not even going to give you a ballpark. Was it a few hundred? Was it a few thousand? What is very small to Matt versus Japan? I wonder if the reason he's not being specific with the number of students he had is so that he can lie about how much money he was making.
So basically, this brings us to November of 2023. Basically, the money that we'd made from Project Uproot had mostly run dry, and we'd finally finished the first version of Project Uproot. And so Ken and I launched Fluency Incubator. So this was not a course like Project Uproot was. It was an ongoing program where students would pay $150 a month, or a little bit less if they were paying annually. And then twice a month, we would all jump onto a Zoom call, and we would do various things to help the students stay on track learning Japanese. Like, I would give a presentation on a language learning theory topic. We'd hear from the students on how many hours of immersion they each did every week, and what content they immersed in that they liked, and then we'd also kind of give them extra homework and assignments and missions and things like that, answer their questions, help them work out issues, etc.
Wow, $75 a day in order to talk to the great Matt versus Japan? What a bargain!
So we initially sold this just to the students of Project Uproot, and we did that for a couple months, and then eventually we did another promotion where Ken and I each sold it to our email list. And when we did this, Ken wrote the emails. They weren't as bad as the Project Uproot launch, like marketing copy, but they were still very bad and cringy and spammy, and I don't know why I let those get sent out, but I did, and that's a mistake that I made. So yeah, just to kind of clarify, with Project Uproot, we sold it once. For Fluency Incubator, we sold it twice. And besides these specific points of promotion, there was no way for you to sign up. It wasn't like there was just a sign up page that you could go to and join anytime. You could only join at these specific points. So yeah, we started running Fluency Incubator. Overall, it went pretty well, although definitely in hindsight, I think it was overpriced for that level of price, $150 a month. I think we should have been providing a lot more content, had a lot more structure, had a lot more community for this different students and things like that. We probably should have been doing it every single week, not every other week. But overall, the students that did come every other week to the sessions seemed like they were getting a lot out of it, and the contents that we presented in the lives, I do think were pretty good.
Some more positive things about Matt versus Japan's course. It seems like, despite the price, the students who were coming were getting a lot out of it, and the stuff they were providing was pretty good, actually. Let me go ahead and write this down real quick. Just give me a second here. Let me write this down.
So we ran this for close to a year, and over time, it started to be a little bit of a problem with consistently providing these lives to the students. Now, I really don't want to throw Ken under the bus here, but I don't really know how to tell the story without talking about this. Basically, Ken had some issues in his personal life that led him to not always consistently be able to show up for the lives. So there were times where we'd have to reschedule or cancel a live directly beforehand, and we wouldn't be able to communicate very clearly with the students on when the lives were going to be. And the students were kind of very confused in the dark, and it really was not good because those students were paying a lot of money, and for the money they were paying, they should have really been receiving something premium. And this got worse over time until it got to a point where at one point in time, late last year, we ended up missing multiple lives in a row. And for me, this was really the straw that broke the camel's back, and I told Ken that I didn't want to work with him anymore.
Okay, Matt. So you were taking money for a product that you were not fully delivering on, right? We have a word for that, Matt. This idea that it's not a scam because you were delivering on some of the things you were promising is just idiotic. You weren't there for all of the lives, but you were happy to take the money for the lives. Matt versus Japan, this is a scam. Even if you want to ignore all of the other things that were going on with this course, how it was priced, how you weren't delivering on the stuff, how it took you 10 months longer to deliver than it was supposed to because you were partying in Japan. Even if you take all of that out, Matt versus Japan, you were in fact involved in scamming people. Just say what it actually is, and then maybe you can be truly forgiven.
Now, I will say that at this time, I think I should have taken a lot more initiative to contact the students, keep them in the loop, and show up and maybe do lives all on my own, even if Ken wasn't there. Normally, in Ken and I's partnership, he was kind of the leader and he kind of had the final say. So at the time, I didn't do that. But really, in reality, I was just being lazy, and I was using the fact that Ken wasn't showing up for the lives as an excuse to not show up myself, and I was blaming it on Ken. When in reality, I should have taken responsibility because my students were paying a lot of money. So that was another huge mistake. I should have taken a lot more initiative at that point in time.
Yeah, see, this is another one of those times where I would love to say, well, Matt, good job. You were owning up to what you didn't deliver on. But you just said you shouldn't be blaming this on King Cannon, and that was it was your own laziness that led to you not delivering on the stuff that you promised. But you just started this entire section by saying you don't want to throw King Cannon under the bus, but it actually is kind of his fault because he wasn't able to show up for the lives. Again, it's this half apology for what it is that actually happened. If it was your fault and you want to take responsibility for it, then do that. But don't start by saying, let me explain why this is actually King Cannon's fault. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
So anyway, yeah, it got worse and worse. Eventually I told Ken that I didn't want to work with him anymore, and he agreed, and we decided that he would continue Fluency Incubator without me, and that I would go on and do a new project all on my own. But right around this time, Ken had decided he was going to do a promotion where he was going to sell his Japanese course called Protocol 80 to his audience, and he asked me if I wanted to do a promotion to my audience as well. And basically, he would write all the copy, he would do all the work. All I had to do was, send the email to my audience, and then I would get 50% of all the sales. Now, at this point, I hadn't actually been making almost any money at all from Fluency Incubator because the consistency issue led to lots of students asking for refunds, and we were giving refunds to anyone who asked for a refund. And so, although I knew it was a bad idea, I gave in to Ken's proposal to sell Protocol 80 to my audience.
Don't let anybody who runs a scam like this on the internet ever get away with saying that they get a pass because they were giving out refunds, or don't give them any points because they were giving refunds to people. This is how internet scams work. You cast the net wide, you get 100 people into the scam, and then if 50 of those people, if 60, if 70, if 80 of those people ask for refunds later, guess who's still got money off of 20 people, baby? Do you have any idea how many people just don't get refunds? I know because I'm one of the people who got scammed by King Cannon, and I never got a refund. Even if people are asking for refunds and you're giving people those refunds, if you're taking money from anybody, you don't get points for that because you're putting the onus on them to actually ask for the refund and then counting on them to be the ones to initiate that. So if there are people out there who just weren't asking for the refunds, but you still weren't delivering on the promises that you were laying out before them, then you were... Why do I have to keep coming back? That's a scam. That's a scam. It's not a scam just because they didn't ask you for the money back. Some people just don't. And you can justify this a million different ways. You can say, oh, well, that's their people. That's their fault. It's their fault. They're dumb. They're dumb. They should have been asking. That's fine. Then they were scamming dumb people. It doesn't make it not a scam. God damn it.
Now, I will say that I have been through Protocol 80, and it is a good Japanese course, albeit pretty expensive. But the bigger problem was I knew he was going to market it in the way he markets everything, which is in that used car salesman, very scammy style. And by that point, I was completely fed up with that style of marketing. And so I knew it was a bad idea, but I gave into it because I wanted the money. And honestly, the way I thought about it was I've already tarnished my reputation. I've burned my reputation to the ground already, sending out these terrible scammy emails and doing the spammy marketing. How much more harm could a few more do? That was the way I thought about it. Obviously, saying that out loud, it sounds terrible. It's a huge mistake. I should have known way better. But that's where I was at the time.
We're almost done with the video. I don't want to keep harping on this, but do you hear it? Do you hear the same thing I do? Obviously, it wasn't bad. Obviously, looking back at the time, I shouldn't have been doing it. Obviously, it sounds awful when you say it out loud like that. Matt. Oh. It doesn't just sound bad when you say it out loud like that. It is bad. It doesn't sound bad. It just is bad. You cannot be sorry for this, but also just not be willing to own up to the fact that it was bad. It only sounded bad. Well, it sounds bad. But if you think of it, right, it's that he wants to get away with this. or as much, he wants to get away with as much of this as possible. He's not willing to own up to this, and if he's not willing to own up to it, he's not actually sorry for it. That's just the way it works.
And so, to make it all even worse, I told Ken to just send the emails for me, and I didn't even want to look at them because I was so fed up with these emails. It hurt me every time to read these terrible emails that are going out. I didn't even want to see them. So I just told Ken, write them, send them, tell me when it's all over, and tell me how much money I made. And what happened was, in one of these emails, Ken mentioned George from Japanese from Zero, and again, he's writing as if it's me, so it sounds like I'm sending this out. And he mentions that George from Japanese from Zero, he doesn't say it directly, but he uses this kind of sneaky wording to make it sound like George is endorsing Ken's Japanese course, Protocol 80. And he was not. And so George got word of this, and he was understandably extremely upset because his name and his brand are being used to sell a course that he doesn't endorse. And I don't think George approves of the style of marketing, this kind of used salesman style of marketing that Ken always does. And so George contacted me over line saying, hey, what is this, this stuff that I'm seeing about you saying that I'm endorsing Ken's course? I never endorsed Ken's course. And he was very upset, understandably so. And instead of just taking responsibility and saying, oh, I'm sorry this happened, this is all my fault, I'll do what it takes to make it better. Instead, I put all the responsibility on Ken, and I said, oh, Ken did it, I didn't even know about this, it's all Ken's fault, I'm sorry. And I was basically, a little wussy.
Matt, you just said that Ken is the one that sent these emails out, and you didn't even look at them. How? Oh my God. How are you not, in this very moment, blaming the entire thing on Ken? Your entire argument is that you never even saw the email that was sent out, that Ken wrote the entire email on his own. By the way, I just want to point this out here. I don't even believe you, right? I literally just don't even believe you. I don't think Ken Cannon would just randomly pull the name George Trombley out of a hat. I think you specifically were okay with Ken Cannon including George Trombley in his marketing email. Maybe you didn't write the actual email itself, but you were completely okay with George Trombley's name being used because you thought you could get away with it. You didn't know it was going to have the backlash that it did. Maybe you didn't think that it would ever get back to George, or maybe you thought George would be a lot cooler with it than he actually ended up being with it. I literally just don't believe you. But even if we live in the alternate reality where what you're currently saying is the truth, you literally just put all of this on Ken. And now you're trying to say that you're trying to take responsibility for it and that it was wrong to put all of it on Ken, and that you're owning up to the fact that it was wrong to put all of it on Ken, even though that is what you are doing right now.
And that understandably made George even more worse and even more upset, and he made a bunch of videos talking about the situation. So that was all. It was obviously a huge mistake to let someone send emails to my audience without me reading over them. Obviously, it was a huge mistake to ever send out these type of spammy emails. And it was also a mistake to put the responsibility on Ken and not take responsibility on myself, because I was letting this happen the entire time. And because of that, it's entirely my responsibility.
Hey, and now that you're separated from Ken Cannon, you're not sending emails like that anymore, right? You're not sending spammy emails about your courses, right? If I go back and I look, you're not sending anything like that anymore, are you, Matt? Are you?
So that's basically the gist of what happened. After all of this, I officially stopped working with Ken, 100%, cut all work ties. And I went on to start a new community a couple months ago called the Immersion Dojo. It's on the platform called School. I'm basically doing something kind of similar to what I was doing with Ken with Fluency Incubator, but instead of twice a month, it's every single week. And I'm also providing a lot more content. In addition to that, there's also a bigger community element. And I'm talking about all the new language learning theory ideas that I had that I was talking about in Fluency Incubator. And I'm charging $18 a month. So I think it's a lot more reasonable price point.
There we go, baby. That's what I'm talking about. He's got himself a brand new course. Okay, let's go ahead and check out all the cool stuff we're going to get with this brand new course of his based on what he said in this video. Remember, the stuff that he was promising $500 beyond fair for all the stuff that he was promising. Matt vs. Japan himself would have paid hypely for the amount of content that he was getting. You can learn all of Pitch Accent, including the stuff you won't learn anywhere else. You're going to get Anki decks, homework, learning materials, and more. And he's prepared all of this now because he's already gone through the Project Uproot stuff. And this is definitely better than italki because they don't know the Pitch Accent rules like Matt vs. Japan does. Students who come to the incubator, they said that they got a ton of stuff out of it, and the content was real good. Man, it was just super good. And now he's got this new thing where you get content every single week, and there's a big community, and there's even more than there was on Project Uproot. And all of that for only $18 a month. Oh my gosh. Where is it? Where's my credit card? I need it. I need it now. You know, Matt, a real skeptic might almost assume that you very sneakily hid a bit of an advertisement for your brand new course in here somewhere. This entire video was just a gigantic 20-minute ad for the brand new thing that you're now trying to sell people, and selling successfully, by the way, making over like $3,000 a month just putting this out there, which is, it's more than I make. It's pretty good. It's more than some teachers in the state that I live in make. The average teacher salary here is like $34,000. You're making well over $34,000. Matt, you know what? Listen to me. People call Kincannon a snake oil salesman, but you're worse than that. You're an actual snake. You poison people's minds with the idea that they're not good enough, and then you're more than happy to sell them the antidote, which just so happens to come in the form of hundreds of dollars that they can pay you to fix their problems. It's sick. You're sick. So sad, too, because as somebody who's been tutoring for probably about 8 or 9 years now, one of the coolest moments in a student's learning process is when they hit that eureka aha moment, like that first time they're able to make a sentence with 4 particle uses in it and it's correct, or the first time where having a conversation with them and they're able to formulate their own opinion on like a movie that they liked or a TV show they're watching recently, or the first time they're able to just tell me about their day in Japanese. It's magic. It's actual magic. It's so cool to see them hit that point. And it's one of the things that, even though I don't make a whole lot of money teaching, and even though I have to work an actual shitty part-time job to keep my teaching business afloat, it's one of the things that really makes it worth it, is to see that magic moment that students get when they really finally get something. But then I've seen the effects that people like you have on the learning community, where they go and they watch a Matt vs. Japan video about Pitch Accent, and then when they come and they get that, what should be a really cool, a really big moment in their Japanese learning, where they're able to finally form their own sentences and actually give me their actual thoughts on something in Japanese, I've seen that moment completely taken from them because of people like you, and you specifically, who make them feel like that's not good enough. Now, instead of being proud of themselves for all the progress that they've made and the fact that they're able to say that they like something and explain in detail why they like it, now they're worried about whether or not they're pronouncing it correctly and whether or not people in Japan are going to like talking to them because maybe their accent's not good enough. Not only is that really awesome moment taken from them, but they now have this new fear that they should never even have to have. And it's so sad, man. I hate it. I hate it a lot. And I hate you. Isn't it amazing how right after you got caught selling this extremely ridiculously priced $500 course for 2 months, that now it just so happens that you can do the exact same thing and offer more for $20 a month? You're gross. You're a snake. Your apology is not accepted. Whew, okay, sorry guys, that got a little bit too serious. That's not the fun senpai we've come to know and love. Let's just decompress a little bit. This is a reel it back on in here. Get those smiles back on our faces. Got a little bit carried away there. I apologize for that. But Matt Sensei, is there a convenient way I can get to this awesome course you're selling?
So if you're interested, I'll put a link to that in the description.
It's right in the description. Oh, Matt. Oh, thank you, Matt. Thank you for offering me this amazing course and making it so accessible. All I gotta do is check the description. Oh, man, I cannot wait to give you my money, man. I cannot wait. But remember, guys, now that he's no longer with King Cannon, he is totally over doing anything scummy to sell his stuff. Totally over it. It's gonna changed man.
As far as I know, Ken is now continuing to run Fluency Incubator, although I haven't been in contact with him recently. And I also believe that he's providing a lot of extra content to make up for all the lives that were missed, that people paid for. And he's also just offering refunds to anybody that just wants a refund instead of the extra content. As far as what's going to happen to Project Uproot, honestly, I'm not totally sure because I haven't talked to Ken about this yet. But I think what I want to do is I don't really want to sell Project Uproot because I feel like the whole project is already so tarnished due to all the stuff that happened and the way it was marketed and everything. And so what I think I want to do is some point in the not too far future, I want to make a new pitch accent course where I teach all the same stuff that I teach in Project Uproot, but I'll just remake all the videos, all the content, and then I will sell that at a probably much cheaper price than Project Uproot was, and I'll offer a free copy to any of the original Project Uproot students.
Okay, this is really doing my head in. I actually didn't even really pick up on this the first 3 times that I watched this video. Just hold on a second. I thought this $20 a month thing that you were doing now with school was like the thing. So wait, okay, just hold on a second here. I need to gather my thoughts. You son of a bitch. Are you collecting people in this new school thing to then upsell them another pitch accent course just like Project Uproot but a cheaper price? Holy shit, that's what you're doing. That's what this entire apology tour is. You are literally just collecting people, having them sort of pay your rent as you live in Japan because monthly you're taking money from them for this school thing, and you're using that in order to just redo Project Uproot again. But now that you know that $500 is unsustainable, you're just gonna sell it cheaper. But if there are already people taking classes with you at school, aren't you just giving them the... Holy crap, I am so lost. Actually irredeemable. Actually irredeemable. Charging people $20 a month, but you're not even going to give them all of the stuff because you need to make another course. Actually irredeemable. That's so gross. I can't even keep up my facade. That's actually just disgusting.
And hell, I'll give it to all the Fluency Incubator students as well. So that's basically the gist of it. I want to apologize for all of these huge mistakes that I made, and I also want to apologize for it taking me so long to just come out and be honest and transparent about what happened. And I also want to apologize for the combination of those two things leading to so many people's time and energy getting wasted on creating and viewing kind of drama videos within the Japanese learning community, which is really not helping anyone reach their goals of learning Japanese.
I have never seen somebody so fragile in all my life. He just wants to make sure that you don't turn on him and go start watching videos that criticize him. All he has to do is call it drama content and then make you feel like a bad person for going and watching videos that talk about the situation in a way he doesn't like. How? How does a person like this exist? It's simultaneously the funniest thing I've ever seen, and it makes me sick to my stomach to even acknowledge his existence. I don't want him in this community. I really don't. But if I have to deal with him being in this community, I just want him to be a better person.
So I'm really hoping that with this video, we can put all the drama in the past, move forward. I'm back on YouTube. I have a lot of content that I've been wanting to make for a long time now, and I'm sure I'm going to make more mistakes because at this point my behavior seems to definitely be a recurring pattern, but at the very least I'm planning on trying to own up to my mistakes a lot more quickly and more readily going forward. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
So anyways, yeah, I'm really hoping everybody just blindly forgives me for everything that I've done in the past. I'm really hoping my friends like Seven Stop and Dogen have their brooms ready to sweep all of this under the rug for me. I'm really hoping I can just be blindly accepted back into the YouTube community because so many people are going to defend me and it's a source of revenue that I'm not currently extracting anything from. Make sure to drop $20 a month on my brand new course until I'm ready to charge hundreds of dollars for the course I was trying to sell before. Okay? See you in the next one. My brain is practically fried from all of the stuff that we've been going over, but there's a little bit more. We're not totally done yet. I was really curious about Matt re-uploading this this leaked conversation thing. I really wanted to know exactly how he would go about it, if he would really just put that audio up and let people listen to it without any kind of, without any kind of editing, without anything to try and make himself look good. And you're not going to be surprised to learn that he didn't. So I'm not going to show any of it here for the obvious reasons. I'm really trying to make my channel as Matt proof as possible, because I promise you, if Matt finds me and he doesn't like what I'm saying, he will Anacreon me and try and get my stuff taken down. He'll call all the stuff I'm saying drama, and then that will justify people coming after my channel and trying to get it taken down. That's just the way he operates. He said it himself. He's a very pattern set person. So you're going to have to go and actually check the video out yourself. But here's what bugs me about Matt's re-upload of the conversation. First of all, he does not just re-upload the conversation. He starts with a 2 to 3 minute preamble, sort of poisoning the well and setting you up to believe that he is the innocent victim in all of this, and the person that was interviewing him was actually the bad person in all of this. If he was really going to be transparent and just let you make your own decision about this video, he would not have said anything at the beginning of the video. The fact that he needs to prime you before you see it is a red flag if I've ever seen one. Second thing that is extremely dishonest about this video conversation is, instead of just going over the conversation that Matt was having with the person interviewing him, the person who recorded this footage brought up a Discord of people who hate Matt versus Japan and were going through and saying terrible things about him to make himself look like even more of a victim. Oh, can you believe all the awful stuff they were saying about me? Don't you just feel awful about all the stuff I've gone through? Please ignore the stuff I was saying. Please ignore the things that I was saying. They're just out of context, guys. I don't know what else I could possibly say at this point. Matt is pathetic. I can't believe that the one thing that people are sucking his dick over is him being transparent and uploading the conversation that proves that he was actually not saying things as bad as people were saying that he was saying. And he's doing it in the most deceptive, dishonest way. He didn't even follow through with that one thing that would have redeemed what he was currently doing. He had to do it in a way that makes himself look as pathetic and vulnerable as possible so that people are on his side. And looking through these comments, holy hell, man, it worked. So many of these people are just focusing on what's going on in the Discord chat and not even addressing the things that he was saying. It's so sad. It's just a really sad situation, if I'm being honest. Okay, I think that's about all the Matt that I can take for one day, if I'm being real. Again, I am working on a couple of other Matt videos. I really don't want this channel to just be hate Matt versus Japan over and over again, beat that dead horse to death. But I think the sad truth is if Matt doesn't have people criticizing him like me, he's actually just going to get away with all the awful stuff that he does. He wants to call it drama, he wants to sweep it all under the rug. But if there aren't people like me holding Matt accountable, I really think he would be going off and doing things much worse than it is that he's currently doing. So I'm not going anywhere. I will be paying attention to Matt's YouTube channel very closely, and we'll be seeing if he's actually changed as a person. Here's a little bit of like elderly 30-year-old man wisdom for you, okay? I don't believe necessarily in giving people second chances, and I don't think people should be forgiven for the things that they do. However, if you become a different person, if you become a new person, the kind of person who wouldn't do the things that the old version of you would have done, then there's literally no choice but to forgive you. Because if we hold this new person for the crimes of the old person, then we're basically just condemning an innocent man for the crimes of a guilty man. You do not get a free pass just because of this. It's so funny that I have to explain this to the language learning community, but do you know why there are so many fake gurus out there? Do you know why there are so many people who say that they're going to learn Japanese or learn another language, and how that number heavily outweighs the amount of people who actually do? I'll give you the answer. It's because it's a lot easier to say that you're going to do it than it is to actually do it. The only way to prove that somebody can speak a language that they say that they can speak, or the only reason to prove that somebody's learning methods actually works, is, of course, to have them show it through actions. If somebody claims to speak 40 languages, you're just not going to believe them until they can actually get on camera and speak 40 languages in a way that satisfies you. I hate to tell you guys, but being a good person is something you have to become fluent in. Matt versus Japan saying that he's going to be a good person from now on, and he's going to put the drama behind him, and he's going to offer decent content, all of that's good enough for him to say, but until he actually shows it on camera that he's becoming a better person, I'm just not going to believe him. If he has actually changed and become a different person, if he's no longer the Matt versus Japan that did all the stuff in the past, then I'll have no choice but to forgive him. But I need proof. I need proof. See you again in the near future, Matt. And don't forget, someone's watching.